Okay, we're live, Jerry.
Hey, Maureen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well.
How are you
Glad to be
with
here.
me? Thank you. How are you with me calling you Jerry?
That's fine. Perfectly fine.
Okay, because I know
We
you
do go
don't.
back a few years.
We go back a few years, 7 years or something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah, back when you were known as Jerry.
That's right.
And
So
now
that's
you go
fair.
by Jerome, right?
Well, do you know, it came about in work setting when I started working professionally.
Yes.
You put your name on your resume, your given name, you have to give your identification. It's always Jerome, and then you get seated and they give you your name tag and your badge and it's Jerome. So I started using Jerome at work.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's all good.
And so
It's my formal name.
you're a big executive coach now, Jerry.
Hmm.
Well, you've come a long
Yeah.
way
So
since grade 10 math class.
yes. My typing, that was the best skill I learned in high school. I still use that. So yes, I coach. So I spent, as you know, about almost 20 years in HR in different
Yes.
organizations, and then about 11 years ago went through the process to become a certified coach, and that's what I do today. Very blessed to work with individuals one-on-one in organizations, all sorts of organizations globally.
Yeah. And you went
So it's
through the
fun.
ICF coaches training,
Hmm.
which is
Well,
sort
the
of,
Coaches Training Institute,
yes,
and then I'm certified through the certifying body, which is the International Coaching Federation.
ICF, right. Coaches Training
Yeah,
Institute, CTI. And that is
yeah,
sort of the gold standard, from what I understand, of coaching.
I think it is. They
It's
seem to
not a
be the largest
regulated,
and the most known.
yeah, sorry.
Hmm.
It's not a regulated title yet. So you don't have a governing body. It's not a protected title. I could call myself a coach. Anybody can do
Um,
that. And so for that reason, I think as a consumer of coaching, it
mhm,
behooves the purchaser to
mhm,
investigate a little bit, what
right.
is your background, where were you certified, what's your training, how long have you been doing it? Because it's really the only way to
Yeah,
know what you're getting.
great point. Great point. Because I spent sort of fast tracking about a year and a half going through the certification process, where some people do, a weekend program and think they're, a certified coach. So that's the rigor that the ICF brings in absolutely to the profession.
I like that
Yeah.
word, rigor. So I know some
Mm,
other coaches who have
mhm,
done CTI and are certified through like ICF, and their
mhm.
their coaching practice is uh, outstanding.
Hmm.
So I have a great regard, great respect for that certification.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know you've done some coaching yourself and training in that area, right?
Well, I call myself a consultant purposefully,
Hmm.
because
Okay.
what I consider, like what I'm doing,
Hmm.
is not really pure coaching, because I am doing a fair bit of advice giving, and here's been my experience
Okay.
and this is what I would recommend, right, which is not
Mhm.
coaching.
That's true.
The coaching perspective, from my understanding, and please tell me if I'm wrong,
Hmm.
is more that I believe that you have the answers, the solutions, the best course of action
Hmm.
within you, and my job is to ask you questions that will help uncover that for you,
Correct.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
but
We
what
hold the
I,
client. Mhm.
go
We
ahead.
hold the client naturally creative, resourceful, and whole,
There you
and that's in the
go.
training. Yes. And in fact, talking about advice, if the rigorous process we go through for the different levels of certification through the ICF, if they hear you giving advice in a recorded call that you're submitting, you will not pass. You will not get your
No,
certification.
no, because we don't want you to lead the client, because then they're less
Right.
invested in the solution, right?
Absolutely.
Not as accountable. It's then easy to play the victim and blame you when it doesn't work, right?
Hmm.
All
Hmm.
kinds of things like that.
You bet. And they know their values. They know what they want. They know if it's a work environment, they know their leader. They know the culture of the organization,
Yes.
um, and they know what they want to achieve. And they can come up with far greater ideas than I can as a coach, right, in their environment.
Yeah. And I've seen, I've been coached, and I've messed around in coaching cultures. You know, I've taught courses on, you know, integrating a coaching practice into your management or leadership, you know, so I understand the concepts a little bit, and it is absolutely magical to watch a really good coach in action, and a good coaching question, the way that it can really land for people.
Right. Yeah, you know what? It's mutually beneficial, because as you describe that, I think of the times, and I hope it happens more often than not with clients, but that, you know, you just feel that you're so connected to them, and you feel that your questions are just, you know, right and ripe for them, and it hits them, and what it brings out of them. It's just so rewarding to hear them open their mind and make a decision, or see something new, or to piece something together that you've, you know, mirrored back to them or what have you. It's great.
That's so cool.
I'm lucky.
Oh, you're lucky. And I think the people you work with are really lucky too, Jerry, just knowing who you are and
Thank you.
your commitment to helping, you know, and how strong that is. I think your clients are probably really fortunate as well. Although I've never worked with you and I've never seen you work, but I know who you are. And like I say, I've known you since grade 9. So
crazy. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse. Sometimes I overdo it. You know, you can care too much. You
Yeah.
can have an overstrength in that area.
You know, remember when we were first building resumes and they were saying, you know, you have to be ready for your interviews and talk about, you know, your strengths and opportunities. And I remember I thought I was so clever, you know, when they were like, so, you know, what are your weaknesses, Maureen? I'm like, well, sometimes I care too much.
Right. I know.
I was,
Employers have caught on to those questions, those answers.
I thought I was fooling everybody. My weakness is actually a strength.
That's right.
It's so amazing.
Right.
So funny.
Yeah, and I think coaching calls out that BS as well now, right? That's what we do in that. Yes, and
yeah. My weakness is I'm full of shit, is what it is.
Right.
Yeah. So funny. So when you think about your career, when I think about my career path and times that I've made big changes and, you know, left organizations, etc., each time I've done that, I've had to sit and reflect about, okay, so what lights me up? What do I want to keep about this? You know, my day to day, and what do I not, you know, what could I spare to lose? So when you've done that a bit, you said you've had organizational experience, and now you're an entrepreneur and self-employed. And what's been the thread that's gone through them all that you're very passionate about?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
You know, at first, my first thought was that I'm a little nuts and I just kind of dive in without looking. I'm a risk taker to some extent.
Right.
But I think, you know, what am I really passionate about? Certainly it's about, you know, there's something in me that I've always had this personal drive to help, you're right, to do something more. Just to and I'm still looking for that fully. You know, coaching is tremendous, and it gives me a lot of that, what I've worked, you know, desired, been passionate about people and helping them be better. But sorry, sort of missed your original question.
What's the common thread through all the jobs that you've had that sort of kept you're like, man, I don't want to lose that. That gets at me. That lights me up. That gets me out of bed in the morning. You know, I want more of that.
Oh, I think it's having an impact on people and growing and getting better at being able to do that. Just getting, you know, learning new ways to help them. Even when I started out in healthcare and HR, you know, and you're doing a little of this and a little of that, I loved meeting with people, you know. And I started out in Toronto, coming from small town, Peterborough, right?
Yeah.
And there was such diversity in Toronto, and that was exciting for me, you know, to meet those people, to have an impact over time when I was, you know, doing benefit work or what have you.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a theme. And also connecting with people who are authentic, genuine, right? Values-based. And I've left jobs, certainly, where, you know, that didn't exist, or bosses, not jobs, organizations so much, but bosses. So that's a thread, people, connection.
Yeah, people connection, helping, and I think you mentioned values, and you mentioned that the other day when we were on another call,
right,
as well. Values are a big theme for you.
Huge. I coach a lot. I talk about values
Yeah.
because I've learned over 30 years now of working with people, and just in my own life experiences, that values are critically important.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're reacting or under pressure or stress, or someone's stepping on a value of ours, we're not at our best.
Yeah.
No, no. And our values can be very different, right? Too. That we're not talking about morals or, those sorts of things. It's about what we value. And it can be trust, it can be honesty, it could be those that we're used to, but it's also things like it can be money or a desire for, to have feedback, recognition. Those could be
Mm-hmm.
things you value as well. That so values and needs, they go a little bit hand in hand.
Do you do values exercises with your clients if they don't know what their values are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll call them out as we're coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Someone might bring a topic forward where they're having an issue with a peer at work, and they have to work together. And I hear, you just kind of hear it. It's partially intuition, or you just hear it that, there's something missing, and you just call it out, right? Is there a value at play here? What value is being stepped on?
Yeah, and values-based leadership is a big deal. And I think once you know your values, you can use them very intentionally, very purposefully to guide your decisions and guide your direction. And I love the question,
Yeah.
how are your values showing up in this
Mm-hmm.
in this move that you're making or direction you're going?
Right.
Always
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's critical. You get back to the core of a person and
Mm-hmm.
what drives you, right? And to your word, passion, right? It's about drive. It's about passion. It's around what you connect to, and we're so different,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're so different, and there's such value in that. That excites me lately as well.
Do you come across people that judge their values or choose their values
Mm,
because they think they should be this instead of what they
mm,
really are, and how that messes them up?
for sure, for sure. And anytime you hear the word "should," you call that out, right? Should why? What's
Yeah.
going on there,
What's the
right?
judgment there?
Absolutely. A judgment, an old rule often comes up.
Yeah, those mental models is what we call them.
Yes. Yes.
I like
There's
that. And
mhm.
yeah, sorry, I always play this game with people. I'm like, so what mental models? And people are like, what are mental models? And it's okay, there's your idea or rules about how the world works or should be.
Mhm.
Let's play this game. The early bird gets the worm. Good things come to those who wait.
Right. Yeah. Great example. Yeah.
What's true?
Hmm. That's right. And that's another great question. What's true and what's true for them?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not a psychologist, an undergrad degree in psychology, but there's some great concepts, and a lot of the coaching fundamentals come from psychology, and a lot more lately from science, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of proof now being connected to behavior. And um, I think drawing out the truth for people is critically important,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps them change their rules, right? Coaching is all about behavioral change, doing something positive, taking action to grow, to be better, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
starts with awareness. And so when you challenge something and say, is that true, it really allows you to have some good conversation and to go back in time. Wow, that's a rule that I've been, that came from back here. I was told that I should do this when I was 12, and I'm still using that as a vice president of this organization.
Yes.
So it's really interesting when you start to dig into those areas.
Just blows things right apart. Makes people think, oh my God.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Well, if that doesn't need to be true, then what's possible? Like, holy smokes.
Oh, another great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's possible? And
Yeah.
that's really what you start to get from that.
Yeah.
And I'm getting excited now, even as you mentioned those
Look at you
words,
go. I
right?
can see you getting all like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah, you
this
love
is
it.
what it's about, right?
Mm-hmm.
It really is, because I've seen so many people make change, right? And these are leaders and organizations that make such change for themselves personally, which allows them to be effective at work, which allows others to see them and sort of learn about, they're great leaders in action, great examples, and then their teams are positively impacted.
They can
And I think
change
it's that.
the culture of an organization by changing
For
their
sure,
thinking and behavior.
for sure. Yeah.
One of the things that I do, so I'll teach a lot of, I teach leadership programs, and people will come into the
Yes.
classroom, and often this is what I get. I'm like, oh, my boss should be here. The leader of my organization should be here. They need to hear this. That always happens, right? It's like,
Mm.
oh, You're talking to the wrong person. They need to hear it. And I relate, like, I get that.
Yes.
But my argument always is, if I didn't believe that you had leadership capabilities and influence from whatever seat you're sitting in, whether it's a formal leadership role or not, I wouldn't be doing this work. Right? We
Right.
all have that influence.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, the person at the top has a greater scope of influence. And so if you are,
Mm-hmm.
interacting with that level of the organization, man, the ripple effect and the
Absolutely.
reach is tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
think that impact, and the same for those who are leaders and aren't open to, exploring their leadership,
Yeah.
um, and aren't doing it well, can very quickly lose, that followership that's critical.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So do you ever work with leaders of an organization who are emotionally volatile?
Yes.
I almost laughed
uh,
as I was asking the question, because I'm like, of course you do,
right. So,
right?
politely, an organization might say, "Oh, they need help with their organizational presence, or their
Yeah.
leadership presence," and so we need to talk about, how can you help them with communication, and then you get into it and you realize, boy, they're explosive, boy, they're aggressive.
Yeah.
Um, um, yeah. So, here's one of my beliefs that I bring to coaching that I've proven is that people want to change,
Mhm.
and people often know what they're doing wrong. They don't know how to change it, right?
Absolutely.
And
I
so
totally
those,
agree.
and if they're volatile, right, and they're up and down, it's, again, some things aren't aligned, so
Mhm.
they're not at their best. Values being stepped on, they're overwhelmed, whatever the case may be, um, and so they're just not sure what to do or how to change. And that's
Mhm.
what we explore, and as coach, you have to call that out, once you've, of course, built the trust in the relationship, and
Yeah.
maybe use some science and assessment or two to highlight and have conversation about
Yeah.
what their needs are, what their strengths are, what gets in the way.
Yeah. That emotional deregulation in a leadership role can be very, very unsettling for an organization, and just burns trust, and people are afraid. And right. And so when you're
Yes.
working in a fear-based culture, the decisions are never strong. They just
Well,
aren't.
that's right. That's right. You're not at your best when you're tiptoeing around your leader, right?
No, no. And I
Um,
think, and then I think about my own experience with families, and I think of, the same
mhm.
thing happens, right? When,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
man, there's so many carryovers, because I'll talk to parents, for instance, that are, fearful,
Hmm.
making decisions based in fear. And I've done it. Like, I mean, I am
Of course.
there. You're not going to shock me with, like, I tell families this, man, bring it. I
Hmm.
guarantee, whatever you've screwed up, I've screwed it up too. Like, my
Yes.
God. So, fear-based decisions, never good decisions.
Hmm.
And, when parents fail to lead by example. So, I've had this instance as well where, a parent is saying, I can't get so-and-so to, self-refer to this program. I can't get them to follow through on self-care. I can't get them. And at the same time, I'm asking them to do things that they're not following
Yes.
through on. And
Mm.
we pull that together. So how are you role modeling what you're
Mm.
asking others to do?
Great.
And it's
Yeah.
often not great, right? But people don't see
Hmm.
that.
Right. Absolutely. And good for you for helping show them that, right? And the next step, I think, is accountability. How do you help them realize that and then take some ownership for it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what coaching does with leaders and organizations as well, if they're open, right? Of
Yeah.
course.
Absolutely. They have to be open. And that's why I like
Mm-hmm.
dealing with families in crisis, because by the time they're in
Yeah.
crisis, they're willing to change, right?
Right. They need help. They need help. They're finally
Try
asking, right?
anything. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Man. So you've done some values. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, just around crisis, I'm really seeing that today with leaders and organizations, um, in this time of crisis, right?
Mm.
Is that they're ready for help. So they're reaching out more. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm crazy busy, which is wonderful. And it's even better because they're reaching out and we can have these meaningful conversations. And they're ready to be vulnerable and address what they need to address and step into sometimes greater strength, you know, in their vulnerability to lead differently or to challenge someone differently in a positive, constructive way.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
this saying the other day that you're reminding me of: a crisis is a terrible thing to waste.
Absolutely.
Like, there's
Absolutely.
such
Yeah.
opportunity right now.
Huge,
It can make or
right?
break you.
Yes.
Hopefully make
Yes.
you, but like,
Well, that's just it, you know, and I wonder, how do we help people to make it through, to come out the other end better off, right? Because that's really, there is this opportunity.
mhm.
There's a huge opportunity, and it's hard.
But I think what you described, Jerry, is exactly it. Like, you help people to see the opportunity. You provide hope that they can
Hmm.
and can be
Hmm.
better.
Yes.
And then you tap into the values and help them link their behavior with the values that are most important to them and fundamental to who they are and what they want to be known for, and
Hmm.
what
Absolutely.
guides them. And I think that
Yeah.
combination is great. And you
Yeah.
would, I can imagine you would coach with such, you would be a very strength based, I think,
Hmm.
practitioner. And I
Hmm.
think you would be very compassionate and gentle in the way that you pointed out. Like you say, I call them on it. I think you would do that in a very inviting, safe way. So I think this is a prime time for someone like you
Right.
to be a coach for people in crisis.
Right. Well, thank you. And I try to do that. There are times where I'm, you know, not so good, or I hold back, right? As a human as well, right? You have your own self-management, your own things you're challenged with in times of crisis.
Sure.
But certainly, yeah, you try to do your best, and there's little things that you need to do as a coach, I think, to be grounded yourself, right? To go into those conversations, to be at your best, to help them.
Here's a concept for you.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think of this one. I
Okay.
used to, when I was in healthcare leadership, think like, and sometimes this got me into a bit of trouble actually, but I think for the most part it served me. But I would think, if I'm not prepared to be fired,
Mm,
I'm probably not making the decisions that I need to be making.
mm. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm cautious a little bit there, right? So
Yes,
I agree. You know, I think it's a good question, and I might challenge people on that. I think you have to, you know, there's other factors, right? So that might be one perspective that we'd look at.
for sure. I mean, the
Yeah,
pendulum can come over to the point where if I might use that as a ticket or an excuse to be reckless, which is
yeah,
not a good.
right. Well, it's a good way though to put some fire under someone, right? To really have them see that far out perspective, so that they can decide for themselves that, okay, yeah, I don't want to be that reckless, or I don't want to take that much risk to be fired because there's too many other things I need to worry about, you know, mortgage or what have you. Uh, but it does often kick them into, oh, but I'm willing to do this much, right? To be
Yeah.
more assertive. Mhm.
Or, even the question around, if you weren't afraid of losing your job, what would you do?
Yes. Hmm. Yeah,
Steps
I
into
think
that
that's a,
whole
yeah,
courageous leadership, like,
yes, yes. And you know, I find so many people don't think they have the power to lead,
I know.
right? To that point.
They think they're trapped.
Everyone does. Everyone can influence. You could be an administrative, you know, assistant. What doesn't matter what level you're at. Everyone has leadership
Absolutely they do. Or we
and
wouldn't,
can
and it can be
influence.
learned, or we wouldn't teach it.
That's right. Right. Right.
I love
Yeah.
that question. I'll start my courses out sometimes. Do you believe that leaders are born or made?
Mm,
And half the room will say born. And I'm like, what are you doing here?
right.
And what are you doing
Right.
here?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You know, that technical aptitude and the intelligence, yeah, you might be born with, right? So some of those leaders, they move up because of that technical capability. And often we're coaching, or I'm coaching people who get there to the top but have no idea how to work with people,
oh
right?
yeah, that's so true.
So it's definitely learned.
It's interesting, and I agree with you. I mean, I was promoted to management because I was a really efficient nurse, which has
Hmm.
nothing to do with managing people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that
Anyways,
so often. You know, it's great. And a lot of good organizations do a good job at helping people along the way, right? And some don't.
you
Some
remind
don't.
me, when I was, so back to the values piece, when I
Mm,
was first started in healthcare management, I was sent off to a brand new leadership training course that they had developed for new managers, right?
Mhm.
Awesome. And there we were doing a values exercise. This, I think, might have been the first values exercise I'd ever done. And we were asked to rank, of course, you've got 50 values words there, and you have to pick out 10, and then you go down to 5, and then you rank them in order of priority for you. And I remember looking at my values and full of judgment and full of fear, and I was ranking one, and there was one that said family. And I honestly, like, yes, but, and yes, and, right? Like,
Mhm.
this is my integrity or honesty or something like that was really my number one, but I was afraid
Mhm.
not to have family. And I also felt like I
Right.
should have
Interesting.
health in there. And so I think I put health in there, although it really wasn't in there for me. So, and I remember then we had to team up, we had to buddy up and talk about our values. And so
Mhm.
I teamed up with this gentleman who was probably in his 50s at the time. And I would have been, I don't know how old I was, 40, 30, 35. I would have been in my
Mhm.
30s, I think. And I said, family's number one and this and number two. And he said, that's good, because any mother who doesn't have family listed first shouldn't be a mother. And I
Oh
was
boy.
internally gasped and thought, well, that was a close call. I
Yes.
almost outed myself as someone who doesn't deserve to be a mother, by being honest. And
My goodness.
oh, it was terrible,
So do
Jerry.
you have how have you been able to change your view from then till today?
Um, well, I still have that fear of not being a good mother.
Yeah.
Still carry that
Mhm.
and worry about that.
Mhm. I
Um,
think every parent does.
yeah, and I've accepted it. I do my best, and I love my
Mhm.
kids, and
Mhm.
I feel more authentic, and I feel more comfortable role modeling that authenticity for my kids, and I think that's part of being a mother.
Yes.
A good mother is, role
Yes.
modeling what I want them to learn, right? Which is, it's good. I want them to be
Yeah.
wholly
Yeah.
themselves and pursue
Yeah.
happiness, whatever that looks like for them. And part of
Mhm.
happiness is that sense of giving and
Mhm.
purpose and,
Mhm.
learning hard things and accomplishing things that are difficult. Like, all that's part of joy and happiness. And so,
Mhm.
as a commitment to being a good mom and to role modeling that, I've let go of the shoulds, and the expectations, and sort of stepped into, knowing myself better and
Tremendous.
being honest about that. And so my number one value is freedom.
Mm. Great.
So I just know that's
Great.
true. And I think I give permission to my kids to do the same.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
What a great shift, right? What a great shift. And I was going to say earlier, those values exercises are a good starting point,
they are.
right? Right. You have to go about 6 layers deeper to really know what you value and where it comes from, why it's so
Right.
important.
Right. And am I good with that
Mm.
too?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so what you've been able to create from that is, and I know your family and your children, you're an excellent communicator. You
Thank
know,
you.
they are exploring, they're doing well, they're finding what their freedom is, right? They're coming around.
Yeah.
They're still with you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
family was kind of a value, but it wasn't the one. You were, if you follow those shoulds, you've got something on sort of a peripheral level, but you really have to go deeper. So good for you.
Yeah, but I had that sort of traditional societal view that
Mm.
as a mother, if you're not putting yourself last and everyone else first, then you're not doing it right.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
I just don't believe that's true anymore.
Right. Right.
And so for your values, Jerry, I'm curious,
Hmm.
do you have your number 1, 2, 3 like
Hmm.
top of mind, or do you know?
You see, I'm one of those almost the shoemaker's child. I could teach this, I could coach you on this, but what are mine? Ooh. Um,
I had the same conversation with another coach the other day, and she was saying the same thing. Like, people think because we teach it, we know it. That's like,
yeah. Sometimes we're not so good with ourselves. There are a few, certainly, and because they are important, I think I've explored them as well, and they've changed over time. But
yes.
integrity's been a big one,
Mhm.
and I've gone a few levels deeper with that one to say, what does that really mean to me,
Mhm.
right? Um, And it really means following through, means being there. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helped me, and I think I'm reliable. It's a trait, that I can sort of pull out of that integrity piece. And so that's important to me. I think, accepting others, more and more, this diversity and seeing the differences and not judging, even, if someone names a value and it's not family first, don't judge that. Like, and I used to have to be honest, right? I would have, there
Me
I am,
too.
right?
That's
The
why I did
sidelines.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so those are integrity, and the pieces of that are big ones. Uh, Trust. I'm always trying to look for that truth. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it's a value that kind of guides me, that I'm trying to use more and more to really test, my automatic thoughts, right? My
Mm-hmm.
automatic feelings in relationship, in self-doubt, um, in exploring what I might do next,
Mm-hmm.
the truth about, is this a should?
Yeah.
Um, what's the truth about why I'm doing this? Is it for me? Is it for someone else? Is it for
Yeah.
appearances? Is it for,
That's
yeah.
interesting. And so you seem like someone, and I think this is true. Uh, when you describe, you love working with people who want to be better, that
Mm.
that desire for growth is another value, that
Mm-hmm.
you hold, and you
Mm-hmm.
seek it in your clients, and it sounds like you pursue
Mm-hmm.
it yourself as well. You almost sound like you've been observing yourself, right? And so you notice
Mm.
when something is, pinging for you. Whoa, what was that?
Yeah, great description of viewing myself, right? Kind of like going up to that 1,000 feet view of yourself, and I think that's really critical that we all do that,
Yeah.
right? And we don't do it enough. We don't do it enough.
Well, it's important for me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for me to spend time with other people who do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even trying to be accepting of people who don't do it.
Yes.
Along with that, you get to live a life of complete contentment. And I'm going to use a judgment word, stagnation. If that
Mm-hmm.
works for you, great. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, then there's the other side of the coin. Where you could, even if you want to use some negative words about that, constant restlessness, in the pursuit of
Mm-hmm.
meeting. And it's, there's somewhere
Yeah.
in between that. I want to have a little bit of both. I love
Mm-hmm.
being on a learning curve, and I value that. That's a value of mine.
Yeah.
And I get to have that without making other people not having it. I just know that I seek it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's important to me.
Right. And I think we're similar in that way, that I seek it as well.
Yeah.
To the point where sometimes I get a little antsy about, where's time going? I should be seeking something, right? There should
Yeah.
be something more here. I should have progressed. I should have learned. I
Yeah.
should have grown.
Yeah, that's funny. But when I look back, Jerry, for someone who's known you since we were 13,
Yeah.
I was just having a quick peek at your LinkedIn profile. I'm like, holy
Uh-huh.
smokes, this man, no moss grows on this guy. Like, he's moving. You've done a lot of stuff. We show up in each other's lives every 5 years or something like that. And we're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's Jerry. I don't
Right.
necessarily follow your professional career on the
Right.
day to day.
Right.
And so when I look at it, I see objectively, wow, you have made huge, I would say, strides in your own growth and what
Mm-hmm.
your professional career. Look at the diplomas behind you, for goodness sake. I know we kid
Right.
you about those, but
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah. They're from the frame. They came with the picture frame. Yeah. I do like to learn, and sometimes I put myself in places where, um, again, I do it because of a should, right?
yeah.
There's times where I make myself very uncomfortable, and it's not where I should be. It's not the right place for me to be learning, but that's okay. I learned from sort of that, sometimes a negative experience, but I do like to grow. I do like to learn, and especially when you get excited and you find, right, you can connect to what you like to do, what you're actually good at. There's a lot of things I'm not good at. Don't ask me to ever help you with your taxes, for example. um,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, it's and so then there's new offerings, right? It's great to learn. I love now that the latest, um, that's coming out around behavior and seeing how our brain operates, right?
Oh yeah.
It's just so amazing. There's parts of our brain that are atrophying because of technology, because of all sorts of things. And,
Mm.
we need to be more creative. We need to be more visual. And as I learn that, then I can bring it to the coaching and teach others, and they practice it. And it just creates this momentum, right?
Yeah.
Positive momentum.
Was the work that you've always done been remote, or do you generally meet
Mm.
people in person?
Yeah, a lot in person. So this is a little different for me.
Yeah.
Um, uh, in some ways, it's been great because I'm driving all around the GTA,
Hmm.
and I've got a little better over time. Saying, okay, Mondays and Fridays from home for all my online clients, and the other days I can get out and about. But it's been, 5 days a week in my basement office during COVID, so for some time.
Mm.
And it's busy, and I'm saving on gas, and I'm not driving around and worrying about traffic, but I do miss that social connection and
Hmm.
a change of scenery for sure.
Mm. What's been the gift of
Mm,
quarantine for you?
mm. Um, time to reflect,
Mm.
and I'm trying to do that a little bit every day. I need to progress a little more with that. With how do I want to come out the other end of this?
Hmm.
So I'm feeling a little bit of pressure to. It's like, don't open up the economy too quickly. I need to stay home a little longer because I'm still figuring this out. Right.
I'm feeling the same.
Hmm.
I'm not
Hmm.
done yet.
Right. Yeah. Me neither. Me neither.
Mm.
But the gift has really been to see people be more vulnerable, and to hear about the people I'm coaching, their leaders be a little more vulnerable, a little more real and authentic. And I'm so hopeful that will continue because it's been so valuable to the individuals, right? And what they can share, how they can learn, how they can partner, how they can get things done,
Yeah.
um, uh, and more accepting of each other is something. And that's the bigger purpose, right, in life. And it's kind of my hidden agenda, right? How people get along in a better way, to accept each other, to do positive things together, not to work against each other. Um,
Oh, I
and
like that
yeah.
hidden agenda term. I like that.
Mm.
What's your hidden agenda? I love
Yeah.
it. That's a good question.
I think as long as it's negative, not a negative, you're okay to have a hidden agenda as a coach.
Yeah, well, your like secret mission, is what I
Right.
hear in that. What's my little secret underlying, hope for the
Yeah.
world here, and how am I injecting it into my work? And
Yeah.
that's so
I'll tell you a
cool.
I'll
Go
tell you
ahead.
a funny little thing that I don't think I've ever told you before. But when I first started working, I always wanted to be the male Oprah
Oh,
because I wanted to have that big impact she was having, right? And I've learned over time, I don't have to be, a motivational speaker. I don't have a talk show, but I can work with individuals and have an impact on their lives at work, um, and often personally, right? We coach the whole person. And so I feel really satisfied that it is kind of my hidden agenda to really grow people and connect with them and have them be better. And that's what I think she does. And so I think, well, I'm actually doing that in some ways. So
yeah,
it
for
feels good.
sure, for sure. And
Yeah.
so that's interesting. I struggle with Oprah a little bit.
I know.
True
And you do.
confessions. Ugh. And that's worth digging into. That's
Mm,
like that. There's a projection there that I
yeah.
need to explore.
Right.
Um, Same with our discussion the other night. We got into the discussion on religion, and I let my
Hmm.
popcorn catch fire. And I'm
Right.
thinking, what was going on there, Maureen? Like, holy smokes!
Oh, you thought it was a sign, did you?
No, it's like a burning. No, I
Look
don't see
out.
it as a sign. But the heads up for me was, wow, you couldn't let that conversation go. It was lighting up some
Hmm.
stuff in me that
Hmm.
is worth looking at. Like, what was getting
Right.
under your skin there,
Yes.
that you forgot you had popcorn in the microwave and it actually caught fire. Like
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
some good information there. It's worth looking at that.
It is, and it shows the power of our beliefs, our experiences, our upbringing, positives and negatives we've experienced, just our views, right? And
Yeah.
that's what makes us so complicated.
Yeah.
Yet we all have, a whole bunch of those things rattling around in our head that impact how we behave every day.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was there, actually. That one caught me off
That
guard.
one.
It's like, what was
Mm.
that? Whoa, whoa, Maureen, settle down. So on that
Yeah.
note,
Mm-hmm.
are there things that you notice about you,
Mm-hmm.
what gets under your skin? Like what sort of
Mm.
things do you hear about and you're like, oh, don't say anything, don't say anything. Well, do you do that?
Yeah, for sure. Um, I've learned to manage this one, but the type A personality that knows it all, that used to bother me. But now I've gotten sort of clever, and I found a way to connect with them and actually teach them as well and help them change. So that one doesn't really bother me anymore, but it did.
Yeah.
Um, it's made me a little stronger and a little more courageous to push back. And,
Yeah.
so it's helped me. It's helped them. But what still gets under my skin? There's certain things that I need. Like in this time, I need space.
Yeah.
I've always been that way. I need some time, some quiet. And with, a teenager, a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old at home, and my wife, and it's a full house, even though we have some space, it's a full house, and the weather isn't quite there yet. So
Well, it's a lot of together time, isn't it?
it is. It is.
Yeah, and for someone who's, I'm extroverted and I live alone,
Mm,
but someone who's introverted and quarantining with other
mhm,
people, this can be tough.
mhm.
Some real
Yeah, it
challenges
is.
there.
Yeah, and I'm seeing it and hearing it with my clients as well. Even some of the introverted ones are saying it's, yeah, at home it's a little tough, but if they can find their space and they can have their quiet time and they're really enjoying it. Um, I think everyone needs some level of connection, right? So I think even the introverts are saying, well, I need uh,
Absolutely.
something more.
Hmm.
But the extroverts for sure, they've been dealing with it. Zoom cocktails and parties aren't really cutting it for them, anymore, and they're aching to kind of go back. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're right. Everybody needs some connection and everybody needs some
Hmm.
quiet time. I mean, it's all a spectrum,
Hmm.
right? And so how do
It
you make
is.
that work in a new set of rules? There's so much
Yeah,
going on.
yeah.
Um, any words of wisdom for people right now, Jerry, that you
Hmm.
want to share?
Yeah, I was thinking earlier just about, it's such an unusual time, and we keep hearing that, and what's the new normal, but I really just, in working with people, I just, there is that spectrum, there is the diversity, there is introvert, extrovert, there's people going through a roller coaster of emotions, I think.
Hmm.
and exploring, and I think what I would say is there's always choice, and you
Mm.
always have some level of control.
Where's the choice? Where is your choice
Mm-hmm.
in this? I mean, I love that question.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right, people think they're trapped. People think that they
Yeah,
don't have choice and they don't exercise it. And they see themselves as victims when they don't see the choice that they
they
have,
can. Mm-hmm.
and we all do have choice. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Genius. You're a genius, Jerry. Who knew it?
No,
Who knew
I
it?
know.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's fun. It's fun, and I still have to find mine. Some days, what are my choices, and what can I control? Mm.
I heard something the other day too. Choose discomfort over resentment. I didn't hear that just the other day. I
Mm.
heard it years ago, and
Okay,
but it occurred to
I
me
love that.
again the other day. That people relinquish their choice because they're seeking comfort or avoiding conflict or
Mm-hmm.
avoiding discomfort, and
Mm-hmm.
yet what that then lends itself to is a resentment and a victim attitude, right? And so this whole idea of,
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, choose a little bit of discomfort and speak honestly and openly and ask for what you need, and do it compassionately, certainly, but do it,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and because the alternative is resentment down the road when you don't speak up and you don't ask for what you need and you
You bet.
get
And when
angry
that
for
bucket
others.
gets full,
Yeah.
lots of impacts.
And you
Yeah.
spill out and you burst
Yeah.
and say
Yeah.
things that aren't in line with your values, and then what do you do? And
Right. Right. I guess the other thing I would add is that you don't have to go it alone, right? Ever. And I hope that's helping people, that they're connecting more, that they're reaching out, that they're
Mhm.
finding they're kind of forced to rely on others, to ask for help,
Yeah.
see how it's, others are doing things and such.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like to ask for help.
Oh.
Back to the judgments and the other things
Oh,
that come
yeah.
up.
No. I
Yeah.
help others,
Yeah.
Jerry. Others don't help me. I help others.
Right.
I'm a helper.
Yeah. Yeah. Back to that interview question, what do you, what's your weakness? Yeah. Helping others. Yeah. Sometimes I just don't get things for myself. Yeah.
Sometimes I do too much.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true though. But yeah, that old adage, you always hear it, but you're, putting that oxygen mask on yourself first, you can better help others. And that's, as many times as we've all heard that too, and back to the self-care piece, it's so critically important as well.
It is. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad the world is shifting a little bit in terms of motherhood, because I had a whole soapbox
Mm-hmm.
on motherhood for a long time about
Mm-hmm.
the self-sacrificing mother, who lives and breathes, to wipe another face. And I'm like, oh my God, I remember feeling so different than that, when I was
Mm-hmm.
raising my kids, and I thought, what's wrong with me? I don't have, I'm
Right.
missing some critical gene, where I feel like if
No.
I make one more peanut butter and jam sandwich, I'm going to blow my brains out. Like I can't do it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Like I was a
Right.
better working mother than I was a stay-at-home mom, and coming to terms with
Mm-hmm.
that was tough.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right, which is fine again, right? You don't need to judge yourself, and you certainly don't need others judging you on that, because there is no perfect way to parent. There is no
no,
perfect way in these days to
yeah,
decide whether you're home or out at work or what
yeah,
have you.
yeah, it's tough. Anyway,
Yeah.
Jerry, is there anything
Yeah.
that you want to promote, or anything that
Hmm.
you've left unsaid that you want to say before we
Hmm.
sign off?
Nothing I really want to promote. I just except for people to to connect with other people, right? Keep
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah,
Be in some level of discomfort,
yeah.
because that does make you go further ahead and grow, no
Hmm.
question.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a couple of questions I heard, and I've been trying to attend some professional groups with other coaches or associations I'm a part of, and early in this process, someone brought up two questions. One was, ask yourself, who am I being right now? And then ask yourself the second question, who do I really need to be right now?
Mm.
Right, and to explore that difference, I think, is really important.
Good
Um,
questions.
mm, mm.
I like them.
So back to the word truth. That's kind of how I'll end it. Look more at the truth in these times.
You know
Uh,
what I like about that second question, Jerry? Well, who do I need to be
mm-hmm,
right now? Because immediately what I heard from that was, I need to be better. And then I'm like,
mm-mm.
maybe that's not what that question's asking, because the answer could be, I need to be more accepting of right where I am right now.
Right.
Ugh.
Absolutely.
It can be
Absolutely.
anything.
Yeah. And you may be grinding your gears trying to meet all the shoulds and everything else, and that's how you're being right now, but that's not how you need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff going around. I think I talked about this on one of my other podcasts, but there's such judgment going around about people who have hustle versus people who don't. And I'm like, both
Mm,
are fine.
that's right.
It's okay. It's okay.
That's right.
It's okay. It's okay to
Yeah.
eat the pie. It's okay to stop eating the pie. It's okay to, whatever you need to do.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
not judge each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
So
accept
much.
where
Yes.
we're at.
So Jerry, how do people find you? I'm going to put some stuff in the
Hmm.
show notes. How do you want people to reach you?
Sure. I do have a website. So
Mm-hmm.
it's www.insight,
Mm-hmm.
INSIGHTHR,
Mm-hmm.
one word, .ca.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it says a little about me and what we do and what coaching is and some metrics and how it can help you. And people are welcome to go there. And if anyone has any questions, can reach out. Happy to always have conversations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jerry, you're a gem. I'm glad we met in
Thank you.
grade 9.
Me too. And I'm glad we're we're able in these times that we're meeting more often, right? And it's not 5 years in between.
I know, it's
A
great.
week.
That is one of the gifts, isn't it? That we've
It is a
been
gift, no
able to
question.
connect.
No question.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Maureen.
Friends, thank you very much for listening. I am again your host, Maureen Towns, and I'm the founder of Maureen Towns Consulting. And what I do is I support families who are really struggling to support people in their family or people that they love who have mental health and addictions issues. And I help take those families from chaos to calm. My work is based on my 25 plus years working in healthcare as a nurse, both in the public and the private system in both Ontario and Alberta, and also my education and facilitation in leadership, and also my success and my failures as a mom supporting children with mental health and addictions issues. And you can read all about those issues and how I came to know what I know and all the things that I wish I had known years ago when I began the journey with my kids in the book that I'm going to publish this year called Broken Open. Same name as the podcast. You can find me at MaureenTowns.com. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to chat with anybody. And if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and share widely. Take care of yourself, my friends. Bye.